So hello everyone. Thanks for joining in today. I'm Anuradha Sant, your host for today. We welcome you to this webinar hosted by the Coaches for You, which is formed with volunteers from the ICF India coaching community. This webinar presentation, as usual, is going to be for 30 minutes, which will be followed by a 15 minutes of Q&A session. During the webinar, you're free to write your comments in the chat box, and we will request you to keep your mics on mute, and also, if possible, switch off your cameras so that to prevent any bandwidth issues or any disturbance to the speaker. However, Nikhil is free to invite you all to speak in between if he has to have any comments from you all. We will have a brief feedback form at the end of the webinar, as it is important for us to collect your feedback so that we could better our services going forward. As I mentioned earlier as well, as we are ready to begin, do write in your name, what is it that you do, and which location are you dialing in from in the chat box. The topic for today's webinar is Develop Learning Agility. And to navigate us through this is our experienced coach, Nikhil Benegal, who's based out of Bangalore. Nikhil Benegal is a master certified coach from ICF, has over 3 decades of talent and leadership development experience in premier global corporates, is passionate about personal learning and change, and is also a certified counselor. So we're in good hands today. We're all facing a lot of change in the current COVID times. And as they say, those who are agile, adapt fast, and are able to thrive. So let's see what perspective Nikhil shares with us today on developing learning agility for ourselves. So I invite Nikhil to take over from here and let us explore this further. So over to you, Nikhil.
Thanks so much, Anu. Yeah. And good evening and welcome to you all. Yeah, so uncertain times, I think all of us have our own experience of what we might now call a collective situation of uncertainties. Yeah? But many of us, of course, have also had personal experience of our own uncertainties, as in our own individual lives, in our careers. Yeah. And it's interesting, you know, before this COVID situation came upon us, I had been going through my own personal uncertainties, right? I was might say that I was in a state of transition. And I've been in learning and development, leadership development for a real long time. And one of the things in the last couple of years, which I was training people on in my old organization, which I left a month ago, retiring from there, was about learning agility. You know? So somewhere around 6 months from now, 6 months back, I actually began to explore in my own situation, you know, all this uncertainty that was coming up for me. What can I really do? Yeah. What can I do for myself? Come out of uncertainty in some way, because that's what I was talking about when I was doing this training, right? So how true was it genuinely, authentically for me? And so I researched, I explored, I introspected, and what I plan to do here is share a little bit of that experience, the idea of learning agility. What is that really? How relevant is it? Does it really help one to come out of uncertainties, right? Or to deal with uncertainties. It's not really that uncertainties are going to go away in life, whether it's in our careers, whether it's at, you know, with our families, whether it's at home. So that's something which I want to explore, share my explorations with you for a while, with a couple of, you know, what I have researched and found, and then take your insights, because no one really can claim to be a master of something like, you know, dealing with uncertainty, right? The very meaning of uncertainty is it's chaotic, yeah? So how does one deal with it? And does learning agility help? So one of the first steps that I took in going into my explorations was to try and understand, what does this really mean? What does learning agility really mean? Yeah. I think I'll just take a pause here. Anu, you were to take a poll, right?
Sure. Do you want me to do it now?
I think everyone has put in there what they are doing, right? HR by profession, accountant by profession. So I think they've got more or less a clear idea. So I think we'll give that a pass, yeah?
All right, good, good.
Okay, so one of the first things which I did when I started exploring learning agility, I'll just share with you my screen, and you can just let me know if you can see it. I have a small slide, couple of slides to share.
Yes, we can see it. You could put it on the slide mode.
Yeah. There is this. Do I remove this?
Yes.
Should I just admit, Priyanka? Yeah, okay. Yeah. Okay, so looking at the phrase learning agility, I first said to myself, what really do I mean by learning? And one of the interesting things that I found was that if one looks from the point of view of where one puts one's attention, one focuses one's attention, interesting insights come up. At least that was my experience. Yeah. So for example, I've got some animations going. Not sure if it's working. Yeah. Okay. So outcomes. If I put my attention to outcomes, as in, you know, desired outcomes. Yeah. What is it that I want? It could be something like, this is what I want. I want my boss to treat me more fairly. I want to lose weight. Yeah. My personal health and fitness. I want my children to take more responsibility and be more cooperative, right? And to grow up to be responsible adults. I want my co-workers, people who are at work with me, or my friends, people in my community, to be nice, cooperative, fair, and just with me, right? Now, these are various needs or various goals that any of us could have, right? How do we improve relationships? Yeah. How do we become fitter and healthier? So what I really understood here was that if I were to focus on outcomes or something which is outside of me, I would end up looking at how can I actually get more knowledge? How can I actually get more information, right? Can I learn some tools and techniques? Can I learn some tips, maybe some hacks? Yeah. While acquiring information, acquiring knowledge, learning tools and hacks definitely brings some amount of benefit because one can apply it. The real thing which I realized here was that I'm not really looking at anything different from my existing skill sets, my existing behavioral approaches, right? So while I acquired a lot of knowledge, maybe I didn't acquire that which would help me to learn at a deeper level. So then one looks at processes. Okay, what is it, or the how part? Yeah, how am I going to do what I'm aiming to do? If I want to improve my influence on my children, what sort of parenting role, what sort of leadership role do I play with them, right? So here one would then have to turn one's attention to something like our own routines, you know, maybe even set up new habits, look at something like instituting new systems by which we do maybe those small things, but which eventually kick off something really exponential, right? Like that's how we build habits, maybe one small step at a time, and then you build up a lasting habit. But now, if one wants to take it even deeper, then maybe the learning has to be instantiated, right? It has to be something that comes automatically to us whenever a situation that requires us to do those habits and processes so that we can get our desired outcomes. So we need to learn then at the level of identity. So who is it that I have to be differently in order to be able to be a positive influence on my children? In order to be able to have a much better relationship with my boss? Yes? Maybe I've got to crack that wonderful presentation in front of very important people so that I can advance my career goals. Yeah? I can advance my career. Or it could be an exam which I need to crack so that I can advance my educational goals, right? But who do I really need to be differently so that I can do this really, really effectively? So one thing that came to me was that if I'm going to be learning, it can't be at a superficial level of outcomes, but it has to be at a much deeper level of processes and even identity. I have to change who I am. Yeah. So then if I have to deal with uncertainty by developing learning agility, and this is the kind of learning that I need to have, then how do I go about it? So one of the things that also helped me to understand better what learning agility was this slide. That typically, as human beings, particularly where we have come through a certain, let's say, a certain amount of education, we have come through a lot of experience, we tend to be sitting in what we might call a comfort zone, right? Because here, what happens is the level of disturbance, yeah? In fact, that's what I put there as the heading of this slide. If one looks at how we behave, which comes as a trigger from what we feel inside as a kind of disturbance. Maybe in Hindi we'll say uljhan, right? We have an uljhan, and we have a kind of restlessness or a disturbance within us, which might be a need that we need to satisfy, a vision or a dream that has made us feel that where we are today is not adequate and we need to go more away from or be different from where we are now. We will then want to leave the comfort zone. So if you have a disturbance that is within you, an uljhan within you, which can be settled by maybe your regular habits, maybe resources that are easily available for you, by doing the known and familiar, you will not want to leave the comfort zone. It's also really about being afraid, because outside what lies may be chaos. Yeah? And that could, when you take a step out, you might slide into what we might call the panic zone. So panic zone is really where, that part of you takes over, all of us experience it, where we begin to feel really stressed. We begin to feel, you've heard of the fight, flight, freeze, hide, avoid, withdraw kind of experience, right? When we are under extreme stress, we can't think properly, we enter the panic zone. But there is some beautiful in-between sweet spot, which is what we might call a discomfort zone. It's not very comfortable, it's definitely not a comfort zone, but this is where we have an opportunity of taking challenges which we can measure up to, provided we put in efforts, provided we look at who we need to be differently, we learn. We learn at the level of identity, we learn at the level of process, and we can make this discomfort zone into a learning zone. And being at the learning zone, at a level of being at this stage, being in this state is what learning Agile is all about. So for me, learning agility, being an agile learner, or being learning Agile is all about stepping out of a comfort zone, taking on challenges which I can handle. It stretches me, but doesn't tear me apart, right? And I learn and I change and adapt, right? So this is something which I thought I'll share with you. I hope it gives you a flavor of what my explorations reveal for me as learning agility, being agile, being responsive, and learning, right? So something here, I hope you can see this. The comfort zone is really about old habits, fears, a closed mind. And what it actually does for us, it kind of holds us back, right? Quite often, you can imagine an animal in a hole, too afraid to come out because there's so much chaos outside. Sometimes we also feel that we stay in a zone of comfort because we are too scared to step out. The discomfort zone, which is also the learning zone, is all about an open mind. It's about challenge. It's about experimenting. It's about creating new habits and new skills. Yeah. Of course, the panic zone is also known as the amygdala attack zone. You may have heard about the amygdala attack. It's really when we are really stressed, when we are in a panic state, we can't really think properly. Yeah. So that's known as an amygdala hijack. So I thought I'll leave this with you. Credits to these people. So to attempt a definition, learning agility is really a mindset, yeah, that is open, where you're always open and hungry for learning, adapting, change, and a way of looking at things that make you to continually develop, grow, and utilize new strategies to solve complex problems. Yeah, you're always looking at a new way of doing, finding out solutions, because the problems are always going to be more complex. It's in the uncertainty zone, right? The discomfort zone. So it's really about finding a comfort with the unknown and the unseen. Yeah? So I love the little folksy saying which I learned, when I was researching this, which goes like this: knowing what to do when you don't know what to do. So I thought that beautifully encapsulated what, for me, learning agility was about, right? When I don't know what to do in this midst of this uncertainty, whether it be the uncertainty which we face with COVID and post-COVID world to come, or whether it's the uncertainty in our own personal lives and circumstances. When we don't know what to do, we know what to do. We know how to convert discomfort into learning. Yeah. So I just thought that maybe I could look at where learning agility could help me most. And I've come up with a few, how does one put it? Yeah, a few ideas of where maybe it can be applied. And I'd like for you to do is to also give in the comment box, in the chat box, your ideas of, from what you understood about learning agility. It may be something which you're familiar with. If you didn't know what to do in a period of uncertainty, back yourself to learn, embrace challenges, and come up with solutions or new ways of doing things, or using what you already know, start taking the first steps so that you can trigger the real potential that comes out from within you, right? It could be any of these strategies that could help you deal with uncertainty. And which would those situations be where this would be most useful? So the way I've looked at it is acquiring new skills to stay on top of my career,
So,
becoming a super learner to meet people. Sorry, yeah?
Nikhil, if I could just come in very quickly, there is a little bit of a lag in your voice. I don't know if everybody is also feeling that. Would it help for you to go off camera for a bit till it stabilizes so that at least one can hear you clearly?
Sure.
Sure, thank you.
So I need to stop sharing, right?
No, you could stop the video, your video.
Yeah, so how do okay. Yeah, yeah. Right. Okay, so become a super learner and meet my educational goals, adapting with what's possible in any scenario to generate the new possibles, right? So whatever scenario it may be, maybe I could find a way to look at new possibilities, yeah? Find more meaning in life, yeah? Learn new skills, maybe know new languages, life skills, help others the best way I can, hobbies, improve relationships with people who are important to me, and build good habits for health and fitness, yeah? Help others change. So maybe if we have time, how are we doing for time, Anu?
Time we are good. We
We're
just
good?
25 minutes past 5.
Yeah.
So you have another 5 minutes and then you can open it out to interactions or question answers.
Okay, so I'll probably take a little more, about 10 minutes more. So I'll just go to the next slide, yeah,
sure.
Which is my last slide.
Yeah.
Or maybe I could, yeah, if there are any questions now, I could take that and then come back to that. Because what I've really covered here is what learning agility in my understanding is, and where it can be useful, and why it is useful. So is there any comment from anyone? Anyone would like to unmute and ask anything or give an insight? Because like I said, I'd like to invite you all to explore this, to give your views. Is there anything that you'd like to put in the chat? Yeah.
So this is PK.
Yeah,
just one question is this learning agility about learning just something that you want, or learning something completely different? And why should that be the rush for people to, because I have been hearing this word agility recently quite a lot, agile methodology, and a lot about agility. In IT, I understand there is a specific application for agile methodologies, but
that's right.
for the rest of the world, like in terms of learning, now learning agility, how do you specify this more clearly on an application, or on a more physical level as an individual learner?
Right. So where does agility apply, right? So what are we meaning here by agility? Is that your question? Okay, that's how I understood the question. How can the concept of agility help me vis-a-vis learning, right? So the way that I've looked at agility is really responsiveness, alertness, the quickness of response, the propensity or the immediate reaction to a period of uncertainty, say a situation of uncertainty, where I don't close my, I don't close my options, right? I begin to look for possibilities. Can I learn from this? I may not know about this now, but it's only a matter of time with effort, I'll be able to learn about this. So it's really about with what agility or what quickness you move from either panic or hiding in a comfort zone where you don't want to take any challenges or risks to step into taking on challenges. Yeah. So that's where I see the concept of agility applying. Yeah. I know that it's used in various other connotations, but as far as learning is concerned, it's about moving into the learning zone. I don't know if that satisfies what you were asking. It's about being quick to move into a learning zone. Yeah. The learning zone really being that discomfort zone.
So would that mean like agility is equal to spontaneity?
It's not exactly spontaneity, although if I can make it effortless through developing this mindset, then by all means, it can also be the understanding of that can be, it is spontaneous, right? Spontaneity to me is something that comes without thinking, right? So if I have developed a mindset so well ingrained of being agile to move into a learning zone, and then there I'd say yes, I'm a spontaneous learner. Yeah. So these are words. What they really mean in this context is all that I'm trying to point to. Okay.
So Nikhil, there are a couple of comments, and there are also a couple of questions. So do you want to take them now?
Sure. Okay. So this is around what learning agility is and where it can be used. Yeah. So maybe I can take it now for maybe 5 minutes before I get back into the other stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a question from Raghu who says, how does one know if one is sufficiently agile in learning? And the second part of his question is, how does one know that improvement is happening in one's learning agility?
Right. So there are instruments where you can measure learning agility. Yeah. They are, of course, in the nature of tests, which give you, it kind of reflects attitudes when situations are given to you. I have not really personally worked with measuring learning agility, but we really looked at developing it as a mindset. Yeah. So as far as my personal experience with it, what I can say is it is something which I can know for myself, and testing it with people around me, right? Saying that, am I learning quickly enough? Am I adapting quickly enough? Would give me an idea as to whether I'm, meeting the requirement, my own expectations of how quickly I should be learning, right? That's what I'd have to say for that. While there are measurements for it, I know for one, the Center of Creative Leadership have a measurement, they have an instrument for it. I personally have not really used that. Yeah, so anything else?
There's a comment and question from Preeti. I'll read it out. It says, it's an interesting insight on how to look at learning agility, especially looking at the identity level, which changes at every point of time. This is at every point of life. Okay. So what are the few signs that you are in a discomfort zone on a constant basis? With day-to-day life, we switch between all three zones. How do I keep myself in the discomfort zone?
That's an excellent question, because it's really about a subjective state, isn't it? Yeah. So who better would know that my emotions and my stress levels aren't really taking me into the panic zone, yeah, aren't really making me hide or let's say regress and try to defend or protect myself by being in a comfort zone, and then move into the discomfort zone. So who better the person to know about this than myself, right? Because the signs really are, one of them would be that if I am open to challenges, right? So if there are something that is challenging me, yeah, am I open to it? Am I actually embracing it? Am I actually going out to it voluntarily? Or am I kind of holding back, waiting for, you know, maybe let me have some alone time, or maybe let me avoid it by taking up something else or distracting myself from it. So if I have that self-awareness, because when we talk about developing the mindset, one of the key things is taking time to reflect, right? So when I take time to reflect, which is really, I put a distance between what's happening in my life, yeah, the events in my life. I kind of put a, you know, tap the pause button, and I begin to reflect, how are things going? Maybe it will begin to occur to me that, oh, you know, here was a great opportunity, right? Let's say it was, you know, I did not volunteer to make that presentation. And there this great opportunity lay that if I were to, you know, make this presentation, maybe it would put me in line for being considered for more responsibilities, a promotion, right? I missed this opportunity. And what made me miss this? It was this, you know, discomfort that I didn't want to get into, right? Of having to prepare for a presentation, make the presentation, get the feedback and so on, right? So who better person to know than yourself? And it comes with these practices like self-reflection, right? Okay, so given that there's less time, I'll look at these questions and yeah, let's see if we get some more time. Let me just share my screen again and take you through how does one, what are those practices that can help you develop learning agility? Yeah.
Yeah, that was one of the questions
Was also,
also.
yeah,
So
that's,
maybe your slides and your next bit will
answer that.
kind of
Okay.
address that. Yeah.
So here what I have to show you all is what I call the how, or the 6 practices, right? So first practice, which is very useful, maybe a start step, is the story I tell myself. Yeah. What is the story I'm telling myself? You know, this really is about, am I telling myself that conditions are so unbearable? They are, yeah, despite my best efforts, things are not falling in place. So am I telling myself stories like this? People are unfair to me, people are unjust, they don't cooperate, right? I'm not getting the cooperation I want. It could be even from my children, right? Or members of my family, or friends and acquaintances, yeah? So if I'm telling a story which closes my thinking, yeah, in terms of options, it makes me feel helpless, it makes me feel powerless, yeah, maybe even despairing. Or on the flip side, do I tell myself a story that, hey, wait, conditions may be difficult, but let me focus on what I can control, on what I can influence, maybe one step at a time. You've heard of this thing being of baby steps. Take baby steps, build it up, yeah, maybe set off a virtuous cycle, and who knows, those baby steps become quantum steps, right? And quantum leaps. It's like if you imagine, or rather if you reflect on how quickly we pick up a skill like driving, yeah? Initially we struggle with it, and then it becomes second nature. Maybe we learn a musical instrument in the same way. So what's the story do I tell myself, right? So this is an important practice to know, what am I telling myself? And is it closing me to opportunities, to possibilities, or is it opening me to express myself, to express my skills, to express my ability and capacity to learn? Yeah. So this is a reflective practice. It's an observational practice, an observation of yourself, to know whether I'm telling a story which is actually enabling me or is making me say no to life. Yeah. Is it making me say yes to life or making me say no to life? Okay. Another interesting practice, before we come to that, is being open to feedback. Very commonplace sounding, yeah, you must be open to feedback, but not very easy. In fact, as far as I'm concerned, with my experience in leadership development, this is one of the most underrated skills. All right, let's say it's a foundational skill, right? It doesn't get as much attention, in my view, as it needs to. Be it for developing leadership capability, be it for developing any kind of learning. How open am I to feedback, right? Do I know how to filter the feedback that comes in, relating it with relevance to my goals and the importance of those goals? Do I know how to do that? Do I have the skills to take what's useful from even my worst enemies? Yeah, or the people whom I might believe that don't really have my best interests at heart, but maybe they do come to me with, you know, some real valuable insight, real valuable feedback. Do I know how to do that? And then work with that in a way which is beneficial to me. So that's another great practice which has skills. Think again at the level of identity, think again at the level of processes, putting in place systems and routines. Think of that. If you can learn this, you made a major advancement. Experimenting with new behaviors, right? Identifying which are those behaviors that are having a negative impact. Maybe feedback will help. What should be, logically, what should be the behavior that will have a more positive impact? And then working back, who do I need to be differently so that the desirable behaviors, which will lead me to my desirable outcomes, become part of my natural personality, right? Who do I need to be differently so that these behaviors become part of me, right? So here it's about experimenting with something new, which means you to be ready to be resilient, you to build your resilience, because there's a possibility of failure when you experiment. You should be willing to handle the aftermath of failed experiments, yeah? And you should be able to take the stress. So this practice requires skills of resilience, skills of focus, skills of self-reflection, yeah? And a courage and willingness to act. Here's another one, looking for connections across unconnected areas. So if you look at this, it's pretty interesting. What this is, a Formula One, yeah, the pit stop, and how well coordinated pit stops are. McDonald's learned how to learn from an unconnected area, an unconnected, you know, expertise, let's say location, which was Formula One, on how to get their drive-throughs more efficiently organized.
Nick,
yeah.
We're kind of losing you in between. So could you just repeat what you said with the McDonald's example? This kind of lost you in between.
Oh, I'm sorry about that. So here, this practice is about connecting across unrelated, unconnected areas, right? So what does one do? So here, this example is really about how McDonald's increased the efficiency of their drive-throughs by learning from Formula One how they handle pit stops. Yeah, how do teams handle pit stops? Yeah, if you're familiar with the Formula One, the car has to be refueled, the tires have to be changed. They come rushing into a pit stop. You know, they're driving at 200 miles an hour and then they have to come to a full stop. They need to be refueled, the tires have to be changed, and everything happens in about 4 to 5 seconds. Yeah, because they're so well coordinated. So McDonald's learned, how can we learn this coordination to give a car that drives in, places its order, pays, drives to the pickup point and drives out in the minimum time. Yeah. So here it's about looking at something which you're good at. Yeah. Personally, if you're looking to find connections in unrelated areas, look at something which you're good at, go more deeply into it, see what are the underlying principles, what are the patterns, and see where this can be applied in some totally unconnected area, right? There are several such examples which I could give you. It's very interesting to research this more deeply. You could look at something like learning martial arts and where it can apply to life, yeah? A philosophy for life, yeah? Just for example. Okay. Most important, pressing the pause button and reflecting. Make this a habit, reflective practice, right? Whatever you're doing, how am I learning? How well am I taking, challenges? Am I actually afraid of things which I'm not admitting to myself? Yeah. Reflective practice. And last but not the least, being open, not being defensive. Yeah. Possibly related through my reflective practice, right? Am I embracing challenges? Because if I don't embrace challenges, if I don't get into the discomfort zone, I stand the chance of quite literally missing out on life. Yeah, I miss out on life because I either languish in a comfort zone, or maybe I spend times in the panic zone far too long and I stress myself out. Yeah. So these are 6 practices. I hope this gave a flavor of the topic of the mindset, developing the mindset of an agile learner. Yeah. So this is what I was hoping to share with you in this short time. So wonderful. So anything that kind of jumps out as a question that would help everyone to know the answer to, or at least some views on? Anything that comes up?
Yes, we've had a few comments and we also had a few questions. The latest one has come from Vasudha, which says, how does one change self-limiting behaviors over a period of time?
Wonderful. That's a lovely question to ask a coach. Yeah. And there are many coaches here. You are one yourself, right? So how does one change? Yeah? How does one change self-limiting behaviors? If I know they're limiting me, I become purely aware of something that's holding me back, yeah, where it comes from, how it is not playing or addressing or contributing to what I value in life. My awareness and my natural drive to do well for myself would take me away from there, right? So that's a short answer. I don't know if it's satisfying, but that's how I see that. If something is self-limiting, I need to become aware of it at a level where I see the link with what I'm missing out in terms of contributing to something that's most important to me. And I feel there's a natural drive within each of us which would take us away from that limitation.
Sure, thank you. But that's a process, right? When you really want to set it in yourself to be something that you want to do again and again, you know, a changed behavior. It has to be.
It's a process.
Yeah, it's a process, right?
You're very right. It's a process. It's about building habits. Yeah.
Right.
And as you would know, with any habit that you want to change, replacing maybe an old one, yeah, it would have to be at the level of identity.
Okay.
If I wish to lose weight, I can't think of myself as a undisciplined or indisciplined person around the diet that I understand that I need to keep. Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting. Okay.
So if I begin, like they say classically, if I want to give up smoking,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I can't say that, I don't want to have a smoke today. Maybe I should say, no, I'm not a smoker. Yeah, it's a big difference.
Okay.
Might sound, because at the level of identity, I no longer identify with being a smoker.
Right. Okay. That's a very deep insight actually, because that that in itself can change a lot of things when you really because we tend to label ourselves and say ki, we are like this only, and this is it's difficult to change and stuff. But I think that's a great way to approach it. Thank you. I mean, this needs a lot more going deeper into. I'd love to have a longer conversation, but considering we don't have time, I must thank you for a great insight. Thank you.
Thanks, Vasudha. Yes, it's a very complex topic, or let's say it's about changing a mindset or developing a mindset. And yeah, we probably need much more time. Yes.
Yeah, so Nikhil, yes, I'm sure we're kind of mindful of time. So I will be launching the feedback poll, and as I launch the feedback poll and you're answering it, we'll also take up a couple of other questions if you're able to wait for a couple of minutes more. So
Sure,
Nikhil, are you okay with?
Yeah, I'm good.
Yeah, okay. So I'm just launching the feedback poll, and as you're answering this feedback, I will kind of read out. So there was another question that we had, or there's a interesting comment from Amit, who says that with environment so dynamic, we move from comfort zone to panic zone. Discomfort zone does not seem to exist. So what do you say to that?
No, it's a good point. Typically, if I'm in a comfort zone, yeah, maybe I visualize, okay, I'm in this hidey hole of mine, afraid of the chaos outside, and I'm suddenly required to come out. Yeah. And as I come out, I might slide into the panic zone, right? Because I'm not really equipped mentally in terms of the way I look at things, the story I tell myself, maybe the mental frames that I have, the way I build the world of my own, right? I would immediately begin to panic, right? Or I'd get stressed trying to do something, right? So the game here really is to find that balance, or let's say the sweet spot between panic and comfort, right? Comfort's bad, but so is panic, of course, right? So what do I need to do to come into that golden zone? If you're looking at those three concentric circles, that golden ring of the learning zone. Yeah. So maybe those practices which I spoke about might help. Okay.
Okay. So there's another one from Raghu asking for any recommended learning resources that you may want to provide so that people can know more about learning agility. Anything that you would like to recommend?
Yeah, you could
put it in the chat box. So if people want to read further and learn more about it. And then there's a next question from PK Sikri, who says, how to change your envision at identity level as a process. So how do you do that?
And sorry,
That's
come again. How to change or envision at identity level as a process. Okay.
Okay, so I think that's a long question, long answer. But yeah, take a stab.
Yeah. So, but clearly that's really, I mean, as you know, Anu, at the level of mastery coaching, what we're looking at is the level of the, of the identity of the person, right? So how does change come there? It's when we actually take our attention into that. What are our beliefs? What are our values? What is the story we are telling ourselves, right? How fears and anxieties are playing a role. So as we become more and more aware of that, we find from our experience, shifts happen, yeah? And when these shifts happen, these changes happen, we find a way. We find a way of being different. We ourselves, as a self, there is a change, right? So a short answer to that is get a coaching session.
All right. So with that, I think we're already above time. I see about 95% people have voted. Thanks so much for your feedback. Thank you, Nikhil, for this lovely session. I would welcome and invite each one of you to also be part of the next webinar, which we have, which is coming up on this Friday, 22nd. We'd love to have you there as well. And do feel free to log into our website, which is CoachesForYou.in. Apart from the webinars, there are lots of other resources there also for you to see. You could look at the different articles, the stories, I think one very, very important offering that we have is a free coaching session with one of our most experienced coaches. So you could get a pro bono free coaching session. And in case any of you are a coach, you could log into the website and also volunteer to become a coach. So there are lots more on the website. So stay tuned. And with that, again, I thank you, Nikhil. And thank you everyone for being here, spending time with us, and being such an interactive audience. So thank you. Have a good day and all the best. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.